Beach.
We've had periods of driving rain. We've had gusty winds. We're sustained right now around 30 miles an hour, gusts up to 68. But the storm surge is the real risk, and this is why this is a mandatory evacuation area. You see the tide is coming in, and the surf is getting more violent. In the past, even in no-name storms, these areas, low-lying areas like this one along the boardwalk, have flooded out, even going into the hotel that's right up on the top of this boardwalk. So police are really enforcing the mandatory evacuation in this area, and we are beginning to see intensifying bands of the storm pass through.
Well, what Florida is feeling is nothing compared to the devastation Dorian caused in the Bahamas. One relief worker calling it apocalyptic. Fox's Rick Leventhal has more.
The death toll has now gone up to 7 and could climb even higher after Dorian hit as a Category 5 and then a Category 4 in the Abacos and just slammed through there, demolished so many homes and buried so much of that island underwater. A terrible scene down there. We know that the Coast Guard sent a Jayhawk down there earlier, and they already rescued 18, 19 people from one area and brought them to Nassau. But there are going to be a lot more rescues ahead.
U.S. Coast Guard, Britain's Royal Navy, and a handful of aid groups are trying to get food and medicine to survivors. And Dorian is moving very slowly towards the U.S. coastline with 110-mile-an-hour winds. It's expected to skirt the Florida coast and move up to the Carolinas by Thursday or Friday. And Britain's Prime Minister got a no-go vote from Parliament yesterday in pursuing a no-deal Brexit. America's listening to Fox News.
Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mezcla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Investigators believe all 34 people missing from a dive boat fire in Southern California died. Jennifer Hamady says the NTSB wants to interview a list of people, including the 5 surviving crew members.
They're looking into whether the boat had fire extinguishers, life jackets, lifeboats.
I am 100% confident that our investigators will determine the cause of this fire, why it occurred, how it occurred, and what is needed to prevent it from happening again.
Though she says they will not come to a conclusion on that while on scene, that it will come later in the investigative process.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal, 14 bodies yet to be recovered. A student's arrested at the University of Illinois after a noose was found hanging in a dorm elevator.
19-year-old Andrew Smith facing felony hate crime and misdemeanor disorderly conduct charges after the noose was found early Sunday. A female friend who was with Smith reported him, and he was arrested Monday. The university issuing a statement saying it doesn't tolerate acts of intolerance, bias, or prejudice. Smith's bond was set at $5,000 and he's due back in court next month. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
At the U.S. Open, a women's star steamrolls through to the semifinals.
Serena Williams needed only 44 minutes to best Wang Xiang in straight sets to advance to the U.S. Open semifinals with her 100th career win at this Grand Slam event. Serena after the match with ESPN.
It's really unbelievable, literally, because from when I first started here I think I was 16, I never thought that I would get to 100.
Williams will now face Alina Svitolina in the semifinals after she bested Joanna Konta. On the men's side, Grigor Dimitrov stunned Roger Federer to advance to his first career Grand Slam semifinal, where he'll go up against Daniil Medvedev in his maiden U.S. Open semi. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And Dow Futures up 149 points at this hour. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Hulu Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
Sing, dance, and jive with the feel-good jukebox musical Mamma Mia. Presented by World Theater Productions, featuring international guest artists, YouTube sensation AJ Raphael.
Hop a day, this is AJ Raphael.
And Dee Dee Magno Hall from Steven Universe.
Hop a day, this is Dee Dee Magno Hall.
Come and see us at the UOG Calvo Fieldhouse on September 6, 7, and 8.
Get your tickets now at WTPGuam.com. Enhance the theater experience.
Tickets are also available at GNC and 76 Circle K.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to Tall Tales for a Wednesday, September 4th, year of our Lord 2019. We're here already. I mean, really, when you were a kid, did you think you were going to get to 2019? I'm sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. I'm Daryl Taggarty, and Bob will be back in 33 days. I remember hearing Real Joe, didn't we just play a clip where Bob says, "I'm back"?
Yeah, that's an older promo.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, should we do this? But anyway, 33 days, and he will be back. So just let me hold the fort for now, and I will absolutely be glad to make room on this microphone for him when he is back in the pink. So let's look forward to that day. But in the meantime, I don't have anything. I was looking online for items having to do with Second Amendment rights and gun control efforts. And I'll tell you what, the media is just a blizzard of stories on gun control. Not much. There was a site, Gun Owners of America, but almost all of the content on Gun Owners of America is video. You know, they set it up with text, but in order to bring it in here, I've got to have the text. I'm kind of old school. My printer broke down, ran out of color ink. Shouldn't have mattered since I'm only printing black and white, but to that particular printer, it makes a difference. And so I couldn't print out my That's the resident phone. I don't know what it's for. It just sits there. But I haven't been able to print it out. So if you see me looking to the side, and that's why you're able to see my haircut really clearly today. When I look to the side and I see to look at my screen, my laptop screen, it's because that's where my notes are. And they're not printed out so I can hold them in front of me on a piece of paper like this. But I'll tell you what, it's this morning during Ray Gibson's show, Jerry Roberts had an excellent, excellent article on confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. And it's about how you kind of look for information that confirms what you're already thinking. You're looking for stories in the news that are going to validate what you've already decided to be the fact, the way that you want things to be, the side of the story you believe, the virtue of the candidate that you back, and you're going to just dismiss out of hand anything that doesn't confirm that. That's confirmation bias. If you get a chance, go to Jerry Roberts' website and take a look at it. I should have pulled it down and had it printed out. I think I'm going to pull it down and frame it, because it is exactly what I'm trying to battle here as I sit in for Bob Klitzkie. I can see the validity in what's her face, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I can see the validity of what it is that Rush Limbaugh is saying as I drive in here to do the show. But I can also pick out where he intermixes fact and pure hard right, hard left turns in logic. And that's something that we need to always be on guard for. Because it doesn't just happen with Rush Limbaugh. Rush is just the most obvious example of it. And he mixes fact and argument freely and extremely skillfully. He's been doing that since he started his show years and years ago, and that's why he's a success. And that's why people listen to him. But it's up to you to listen with a critical ear, not to criticize him, but to be able to pick fact from fiction. And so the same thing with your most querida down at the legislature. I say querida because chances are that one of those 10 is your favorite, more so than one of the 5 by gender. And even the governor, you know, she's our first female governor, as Bob's fond of pointing out, and you're going to want to give her the benefit of the doubt. That's confirmation bias, which means that once she's got the benefit of the doubt, she can take you by your little hand and lead you right down the primrose path if you're not a critical thinker. And I don't want you to listen to what I'm saying and just swallow every spoonful. Please don't. That's not what's intended. I want you to listen and make up your and challenge your own thinking, and then come up with what conforms with your standards, not what conforms with the brand of peanut butter that you're partial to. Is it Jif? If it's not Jif, it ain't. No, you know what I mean. So, Rinso Blue. So, yeah, even this thing with Delegate St. Nicholas, you kind of get an idea of what I think of him. But that doesn't mean that everything he does is wrong. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to cut him some slack when it comes to being attacked on personal matters. But I sure am going to hold him to account for the way he spends public money. I don't care. I don't care what he does on his private time, unless he's paying for it with official dollars, or dollars that have a restriction on how they're going to be spent, like your money that you donated to his campaign. So we'll go through some of this stuff in the course of the day. I'm going to turn my volume down here, so in case my sweetheart calls me, it doesn't go ting-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling the way that it would go when my honey calls me. So got that. And we can get right on to Zami Kotny. And we have a couple of, only one local editorial today. So the only one in the running today for the coveted Blue Star is Guam Daily Post. In the Guam Daily News today, making right deal, right way to make a deal on China trade. Reprinted from the USA Today editorial board is the editorial. If you're interested in that sort of thing, you're certainly welcome to go by and grab a copy and see what it is that the USA Today is saying. But in local matters, which is kind of where the rubber hits the road, you want something from China, go to Kmart. I'm sure they got it there. Or Kwangwa, anyway, up in Mighty, the spot. The Guam Daily Post is saying, we agree with Rigel. Delay power plant decision until questions get answers. Let's see how the editorial brains over at Guam Daily Post are handling this issue for the public that's buying their rag. Eloy Hara, a utilities commissioner years ago, was among those who recently went public to essentially dismiss the value of Guam senators and Guam Luliang Guerrero's duty to scrutinize the proposed new power plant deal. They need to try to understand what's in it and how it would affect Guam's ratepayers and the community in general. Quote, they will definitely not be able to handle a much more technical and complex multi-billion-dollar contract, Hara claims. We disagree, the editorial board. The governor, as well as the senators, should find out, before the deal is signed, what this proposed agreement would mean to consumers, businesses, and the economy in general. It's also part of the senators' and governor's power to get the opinion of energy industry and finance experts for a crucial third-party review of this deal. The executive branch and the Guam legislature have the power to help shape and set our island's energy policy. We support Senator Clinton Rigel's call for an oversight hearing on this matter. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities and subsequently the Rate Regulator Public Utilities Commission should suspend any decision on this deal until the lingering questions have been cleared up. One can argue that CCU commissioners were elected by the voters, but they have so far been more of a consenting ally to the Guam Power Authority, even approving pay raises of top-level managers illegally, behind closed doors, rather than serving as an advocate for the interest of the ratepayers and the rest of the public. A lot has changed since GPA first made the pitch to build a massive power plant. GPA argued it faced $352 million in fines from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for the pollution its plants discharge into the air. 2 of the 4 main air polluters were knocked out of commission by the explosion and fire at 2 Cabras power plants several years ago. Since GPA first made the case for one massive power plant years ago, the U.S. EPA has, as recently as in June this year, according to Reuters and other news agencies, finalized its plans to relax limits on greenhouse gas emissions from power plants. And yet GPA is still proceeding with one massive power plant fueled by ultra-low sulfur diesel without asking U.S. EPA if it could get more time to figure out a more environmentally friendly balance between more solar energy for homes, government buildings, and businesses, and maybe a smaller but new power plant. The last time Guam tried to get an exemption or extension of time from U.S. EPA was during the Obama presidency in 2012. It doesn't take an engineer or another expert with technical know-how to give these things some thought. What's important is GPA and CCU should not move full throttle on something that was initially projected to cost $400 million to build and now would cost as much as $600 million. When GPA first took this power plant idea on a road tour to get public support, it told the community the base rate portion of power bills would not increase. Now GPA is saying the base rate would increase, but other costs, such as fuel, would fall, so customers' power bills would still decrease. And what about the checkered past of GPA's chosen bidder, South Korea's Korea Electric Power Company? At a recent meeting, Michelle Voakolo, president of the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance, asked commissioners if they were at all concerned about negative news regarding KEPCO, which has faced charges of corruption in the past. A former vice president of KEPCO was among 100 officials and suppliers charged with corruption over faked safety certificates for nuclear reactor parts in 2013 on the heels of the Fukushima disaster in Japan, the Voice of America has reported. Given ratepayers' history with GPA's past assurances, it really doesn't hurt to be cautious. And all these concerns are not necessarily something GPA's technical people would think of in the interest of ratepayers. That we know from experience. The editorial from Guam Daily Post entitled "We Agree with Rigel. Delay Power Plant Decision Until Questions Get Answers." I'm going to agree with the headline. I'm going to disagree with the reason why. The editorial writers have it all wrong. When we experienced the way that the legislature and governor fought over political credit for reducing ratepayer, the cost of power to ratepayers, to the extent of strangling GPA so that it was unable to build out in time for to meet demand. We had years of rolling blackouts, and large businesses had to install their own power plants, and ratepayers were paying premium dollars for small units, like basically emergency units, to provide baseload power with the most expensive fuel available at the time. Years of that. And this editorial would have us roll back into that. Now, I know Eloy Hara, and I know that he doesn't candy coat his arguments. He goes just straight to the conclusion. And sometimes I do that too. It rubs people the wrong way. But he's right, because he was in there at the time, and it was agonizing for the people who were responsible for making sure the lights stayed on. And it was our own elected officials in the legislature and in Adelup who were causing the problems. They were putting money over at some other places, DOE. They wouldn't let GPA do the things it needed to do. Now, I agree. GPA has sort of switched up its story, and it's going to cost more. And KEPCO is a company that probably should not have been allowed to bid. Since they were involved, they were the company, as we're going to get to a little later, that was involved in operating Cabers 3 and 4 when one of those blew up and took the other one out with it. They were operating it. They were maintaining it. They were, supposed to be on top of it. So why are they back in the picture again? And from what I understand from the other story, the insurance company is still riding them, because the insurance company paid off GPA, but the insurance company is still looking to get its money back from KEPCO's insurer. So it's not up to the senators and the governor to hold up the process. It's up to the PUC. And why is that? Because the legislature and the governor created the CCU and told them, you now have the power to make these decisions. We'll stay out of it. And if there is a technical review to be had, that's why there's a PUC. And you send your proposal over to PUC. And we'll trust that too. I don't have a lot I have respect for them as individuals, but I don't have a lot of respect for them as a gaggle of board, looking out after the public interest, overseeing GPA. Talking about the CCU. Individually, I like every one of the people on that board. As individuals, I'll drink a beer with any of them and enjoy it. But I don't think they're really doing. They're not responding to the ratepayers and coming out and explaining exactly why this has to go down this way. And consider also, it's not just for us that power plant's being built. That power plant's being built to make sure that the military doesn't think that the civilian side on Guam won't generate enough power for their needs. And once they think that we're going to play politics with GPA and interfere with their processes, then they will delink. They'll generate their own power. And that would be, and they still would be running their power up and down the power poles on Marine Drive are still, one of those, that set is still theirs. It links Big Navy and Anderson. So, you know, it's not, this isn't easy. Now, there was a question about U.S. EPA as recently as June this year, according to Reuters and other news agencies, finalized its plan to relax limits on greenhouse gas emissions from power plants. Well, if this editorial board is paying any attention to global warming and the agenda of the current federal administration, the Trump administration, to roll back environmental protections nationwide, you probably should expect those standards to be rolled forward again. So why would we go and ask for an exemption and just go ahead and start spewing, you know, burning bunker fuel and spewing the sulfur into the air and say, oh yeah, we're fine. We still have, you know, how many 1,000 miles of clean air to before it's going to smog up the air over in the Philippines. I don't know if you've been around Guam long enough, you realize that the air here on Guam, we get the pollution from elsewhere in the world, and it's visible on Guam during certain days. If you've lived here long enough, you know this. So, no, this editorial is right for the wrong reasons. Rely on the PUC to question, because somebody there on a technical basis will challenge the CCU and GPA if there is a basis for a challenge on technical grounds. And Eloy Harra is right. If the legislature can't figure out its own billion-dollar budget and how to run more efficiently and effectively the government of Guam, please don't ask them to make a decision on the new power plant, because they are neither technically nor politically competent to do that, in my humble opinion. Okay, so no star here today for Guam Daily Post. I'm happy that you wrote that the editorial was written on a matter of local concern, and I'm glad that you're supporting Senator Rigel, who is the oversight chair for the utilities, and he is the person who is absolutely empowered to call the CCU in and require them to answer the questions that he's putting to them. It would be wrong, but the legislature has the power to dissolve the CCU. And that would not be a step forward. But if they want to play brinksmanship on it just so they don't have to answer questions, then maybe that's when somebody gives a call to the FBI and says, please look into why these people are so adamant about, hopping into bed with KEPCO. We think there's something wrong here. And just turn it over to the professionals. If you think there's really something wrong, let the professionals handle it. They're equipped. But the legislature's not equipped. But it is perfectly equipped and empowered, and we expect Senator Rigel to get the answers from the CCU on his concerns. Because his concerns are our concerns. We elected him to represent us and to ask those questions. And on that, the Guam Daily Post is absolutely right. Absolutely. It's 4:30, and it's time for us to take a break here on Tall Tales, our first. Let's do that. I'll take a sip of coffee, and we'll come right back after this with more.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
30 years ago, the very first Subway restaurant opened in Guam. Now, 15 restaurants later, Subway Restaurants is celebrating this milestone with a buy one, get one free offer every weekend, starting September 14th through October 12th. Come celebrate 30 years. Enjoy your favorite sandwich, salad, or wrap, all made with freshly sliced veggies and bread baked in every store. Take advantage of this buy one, get one deal. It's Subway Restaurants' way of saying thank you, Guam, for 30 wonderful years. Subway, making what you want.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
And welcome back to Tall Tales for Wednesday afternoon. Confirmation Bias Wednesday, for lack of another way to, I just can't get that confirmation bias out of my mind because it's so important, so important. Let's say hi to some of the folks who have joined us on Facebook Live. Margaret Bloss says, Hafade Daryl, and my blushing bride is watching me right now. I guess she's can't get over my hair being so short either. Let's see, Ishmael Velez. Yeah, he's shocked as well. That hair, he says. And then let's see. Sherry Iriarte says good afternoon. Oh, thank you, Margaret. And then Tita Guay is admiring my new style here, my new do. I was thinking of grabbing a wig, but I realized there were a couple wigs I found, and I think I gave them to Salvation Army or something, but they're not where the last place where I left them in the house, and so otherwise I would have had long, it's a kind of a brown hair anyway. And then Jen Delgado is like, she's exclaiming. Let's do. And Nate Horn, let's do this. And then Jen is on it here, watching me closely in the camera. And I answer back. This is my GQ look. It's all costuming, whether my hair is long or short. So for those of you who can't see me because of the radio, is in the way on the dashboard of your car, sorry about that. And then Nate Horn says there's always a website for every confirmation. It might be something that I was talking about with the information on the power plant. There are not everything gets posted online. Some things really need to be investigated. But we if we have a history with this, and there's something I wanted to bring up about that. James Howard says somebody going to get a nice commission on this deal. And then Jose Martinez asks, what branch of the government does the CCU fall under? And I was saying it's executive, but it doesn't fall under the executive. It is part of the executive branch. It's created by law. So legislature and governor agreed to establish the CCU as the board overseeing two utilities, water and power. Now, they could have put the municipal golf course and the Guam Solid Waste under the CCU. It was supposed to. go under there. That was what it was designed to do. And I don't know, maybe they just got comfortable having just two agencies. But that's kind of the way it worked out. And so I explained that back again. And so that's what's shaking on Facebook Live. I'm going to go back over to something I was looking at earlier. And let's see, where is that? Oh, page 1 of the Guam Daily Post today. Of course, we just went over the editorial. But on page 1, CCU okays $600 million power plant deal. And I kind of had this under the show heading of excavating the point. But this is the kernel of the tiff here between Senator Rigel and the chairman of the committee that oversees the power utilities and the CCU. Let me summarize this quickly. This is a quote by Senator Rigel. Quote, "Why would we award a contract to a company that was operating the Cabras power plant when it exploded?" To which Simon Sanchez responded that that statement was, quote, speculative, and then proceeded to appeal with the reasoning to look at all of the other power plants that KEPCO has built and operated that haven't exploded. And that logic is supposed to offset Chairman Rigel's question without answering the question. So that's the nib of the issue here. So speaking of nubs or nibs, Vince Akimoto, you know him. He's got a letter to the editor in today's Guam Daily Post on page 18. That's entitled, "Our Leaders Have Failed Us. We Must Rise Up to Fix GMH." Now, for those of you who don't know Vince Akimoto, let me just, before we go into this, he's a homegrown medical doctor with privileges at GMH, a successful businessman in the greater Guam medical services sector with American Medical Clinic. You know, there's more than one of them. There's one in Upper Tumon and one in Mingilo. To his credit, and a family man. How credible is he? You know, before we get into this editorial, letter, how credible is he compared to the spin gaggle that's wasting GMH administrative office air conditioning? He's not a government policy analyst, and he's never been elected or appointed as a GovGuam official. How informed would you consider his analysis of GMH to be? Has he ever been trained by CMS or any hospital accreditation authority to perform a methodical institutional facility assessment? Does his face display weathered gravitas or card shark confidence, typical of GMH leadership over the decades? No. He's not even modest, citing his, quoting him, savage criticism by well-meaning medical doctors like me. That's a direct quote. I'd like to comment on the editorial that he wrote today, his letter today. He freely spouts colorful adjectives to illustrate his points. He fails to recommend that excess GMH employees should be transferred to DPW, where there are current openings and budget for bus drivers, and a shortage of building inspectors with good eyesight, healthy enough to walk further than the parking lot. Several could even man the security shack without selling drugs, or they could staff the deputy director. he wants the Tourist Attraction Fund to flow directly to GMH, not public health or private health clinics. I think without GVB or GITA boards, those funding flows would just become special funds. And you know what happens with special funds. If you think the annual budget and the business privilege tax increase were just same old, our senators could creatively distribute those funds to 3 times more places than you or I would. Other than that, he's right. So what did he say? It's a good time to take a look at GMH. It's a rainy day, and we're likely to have many more of these rainy days, and every day it rains. Every day we get a day like today. Remember that the water flows right down into the electrical system at GMH and gets all over the floor. They got to mop, and they got to watch out that people don't slip on the floor or get shocked because the roof leaks. Okay? So every time it rains, and it is rainy season, so it's a good time to take a look at GMH. Our leaders have failed us. We must rise up to fix GMH. There's one more thing for us to do. He's such a demanding dude. By Vincent Tahiron Akimoto. We all have others to whom we must listen, and by whom we are held accountable. These are often those whom we serve, such as our parents, our family, our friends. Sometimes we will be held accountable by those whom we lead, such as colleagues or students or even little children. Over the past few days, I have been held accountable by such people for my recent public criticism of Guam Memorial Hospital. Apparently, many of our people have a deep love of GMH, and I unintentionally offended that love by my harsh, honest, incisive, and biting commentary about decrepit, leaking, foul facilities, protracted patient safety violations, and mean-spirited tax increases on food and medicine to fund a stubbornly bloated local government payroll. If my words stung anyone, I hereby apologize to the many hard-working, honest, and kind frontline employees at our beleaguered Guam Memorial Hospital. Problem: leaders promise money to fix GMH, hire administrative sycophants instead. For the past 14 months, since losing hospital accreditation, you have been subjected to savage criticism by members of our frightened community, your disgruntled patients, and even well-meaning medical doctors like me. The sting of your shame is only magnified by the public recognition of long-standing hospital safety violations. Pseudomonas-stained towels strewn under black, moldy ceiling tiles, Legionella bacteria brewing within leaky air conditioning units, and widespread systemic operational failures surround you daily. But the humiliation of being the only local hospital to lose accreditation is not the fault of the honest, hard-working GMH employee who works rain or shine 24/7, 365 days a year. You have been betrayed by our government leaders who have falsely promised monetary relief so that necessary medicines and hospital supplies could be purchased. You have been insulted by your own human resource officials who defend substandard nursing and allied health professional wage structures while hiring overpriced business consultants and attorneys. Even now, a politically motivated tsunami of newly hired unnecessary administrative sycophants deluges the GMH parking lot with a logjam of cars still bearing new GRMC employee parking decals. Okay, we heard the problem. Now he puts down reason. Hospital GovGuam leaders value payroll politics more than safe patient care. As the great Yankee philosopher Casey Stengel once said, there are 3 kinds of people: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who ask, what happened? Joint Commission national certification had meant that Guam's hospital met the highest standards for safe patient care, which is central to GMH's core identity. Over the past 3 years, while GMH failed to prioritize patient safety, the Naval Hospital Guam and Guam Regional Medical City actively maintained accreditation. The protracted and persistent loss of accreditation is damning testimony of GMH's underlying weakness and failure. Hospital and government leaders continue to value payroll politics more highly than safe patient care. In other words, Guam has thrown the taxpayers of Guam under the bus. As I scrape myself angrily from the road, I would like to join those of you tired, poor, huddled, wretched masses yearning to make good things happen for GMH. Yearning to make good things happen for GMH. Solutions. Nix excess admin staff. Give GMH $60 million from tax increase. Raise nurses' pay. Unlike some pessimistic politicians, I believe GMH has the talent to re-attain national accreditation patient safety standards. I hereby acknowledge that I have the will to do what is needed, and I now loudly offer the following solutions to our hospital's life-threatening problems. 1. Laterally transfer 300 administrative and clerical personnel to the Guam Visitors Bureau and the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Ask not what they will do there. Rather, ask what they are doing at GMH. With that transfer, GMH will have $17 million to hire the necessary clinical staff to open 45 unused hospital beds that will then allow the emergency room to focus on acute critical care. 2. Immediately give GMH the $60 million generated by the vicious tax increases done in its name. Regain accreditation. Fix the electrical panel. Fix the leaky roof. Make the hospital safe again. 3. Require all GovGuam employees, retirees, and their dependents to receive their medical care at GMH to keep the $65 million GovGuam health insurance dollar. If GMH is good enough for Guam, then it is good enough for GovGuam employees. 4. Outsource GITA and GVB and fund those inorganic and non-critical functions with taxes on hotels, banks, insurance companies, and GRMC. Defund special assistant and deputy director positions and use that money to fund pay increases for GMH nurses. 5. Redirect the $45 million tourist attraction fund to the GMH administration for capital improvement and continuous facilities maintenance expenditures at the hospital. Complete the long-promised OB ward renovations. 6. Quote, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. End quote, and he's quoting Margaret Mead. And that is letter to the editor. Our leaders have failed us. We must rise up to fix GMH by Vincent Taiharon Akimoto. That appears in today's Guam Daily Post on page 18. I do hope you've enjoyed that. No telephone calls? Good, because it allowed me to get through that. Our telephone number here is 888-8255, 888-TALK. I'd be very happy to hear from you this afternoon. And I'll see what's shaking on Facebook while I was turned around the other way. Mary Ann. Let's see. Let's see. Going back here. Jose Martinez says, so CCU is like GovGuam in the legislature? Is like the federal government? He's laughing out loud. And then Nate Horn says, that's like saying, look at all the banks I haven't robbed. Yeah. Yeah. Once you've been robbed, at least we know that, you're vulnerable to get robbed again, right, by the same robbers. Thank you, Nate, for that. Catherine Tyron's there. Hey there, Prima. And then Mary Ann says, I think the gist of his idea regarding the reallocation of GMH staff. This is on Vince Akimoto's letter. was that they are admin heavy versus adequately staffed in important areas like nursing, or that the money could be better spent on necessary supplies. Yes, Marianne, $17 million for 300 positions that are not necessary in GMH admin. Admin functions that could very easily be done through streamlined processes, and also hard work on the part of those really high-paid administrators who are going to have to stay and work. It's 4:50. Let's take a break here real quick and come back with the balance of this hour of Tall Tales.
Whether you're going grocery shopping, taking the kids to the mall, or going to work, you need a reliable car that can take you where you need to go. A reliable car also needs reliable insurance. Let Nanbo Insurance make your auto insurance easy and uncomplicated. With Nanbo, you can also save big when you bundle up and insure your car, home, motorcycle, or business. Enjoy great savings up to 50%. Visit nanbo.com or call 477-9754 for more details.
Rain. It's nature's way of cleansing the earth. Yet by the time that rainwater makes its way to your home, it may not be exactly the same as nature created it. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve the quality of the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home, so you can be sure your water is clear, clean, and fresh, just as nature intended it to be. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
No, thank you so much for the music. Real Joe, appreciate it. And welcome back to Tall Tales. Again, the telephone number here is 888-8255. Like to take a look at this article I found in the PDN on page 2 today. Reports of dengue and leptospirosis outbreak overwhelm Yap officials. This is really, really serious. This is something, I was rereading the article, and out of 12,000 people, and of course these 12,000 people are spread out over a whole lot of islands too, so there's maybe 10,000 in the middle, and I'm not sure where they have 406 suspected cases of dengue fever, 91 confirmed, according to a situation report posted by the Yap State Government Public Information Service. But the article here doesn't say whether it's like evenly spread out to all of the islands of Yap or it's just in one area. And then there have been 378 suspected cases of leptospirosis, with 82 confirmed cases, and no deaths have been reported from leptospirosis. And 14 people have both diseases. And they also have a reemergence of hand, foot, and mouth disease. Now, we've heard of that as being a concern here on Guam, but we didn't realize that this outbreak in Yap was so widespread. This is the first time it's come out like this. We've had stories having to do with one suspected case, but we haven't heard that such prevalence in Yap and in the Philippines has been ongoing recently. And something that's missing from this article, it says, well, there is something here, a quote from a public health announcement. Guam will likely continue to see additional suspected and confirmed dengue fever cases this year from immigrants, migrants, and residents who travel back and forth to and from the Philippines or to and from island states in Micronesia. Public Health said there are several outbreaks of dengue fever in the Western Pacific region, including Palau. So then there's an advisory. And healthcare providers are urged to be on alert for possible cases and report them to the Bureau of Communicable Disease Control. I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be a more aggressive response on the part of public health officials, such as meeting each plane. They're probably already doing something like doing an extra spraying for mosquitoes on flights coming in from Yap, Palau, and the Philippines. I think Marshall Islands is in there too, but they don't mention it here. But it's easy to keep out if you keep track of who's coming in. You get their contact information. You examine people coming in, see if they're exhibiting any symptoms. Again, spray the cabin before you let them out. Before you open the doors. It's real important that we keep it out, and that we track people before they spread the disease locally. Before, they're talking about leptospirosis being in like river water because it's something that's endemic to wild animals, and that it's one of those diseases from wild animals that can be contracted and become very serious in humans. But I've always thought that in the States anyway, the main place you would get leptospirosis is not by swimming in a river, like here, but by playing in a sandbox where cats have been using it as a handy dandy place to do their thing. So, but now we can actually get it from travelers, people who are moving around by air travel. So, be on the lookout for that. I would be on the lookout for a public health response that's more like a SARS epidemic or something. You know, exercise, use it as an exercise the muscle of public health facilities and staffing and organization, and meet those planes and make sure that the people who are coming in that we know where they're going, specifically going, and if anyone has symptoms, even the most minor symptoms, that they are carefully tracked so that those diseases don't get loose in our community. These sorts of things are on my mind today. And while I'm waiting for your call, well, we only have a couple of minutes before 5 o'clock. But remember, this is Confirmation Bias Wednesday. And if you are at all inclined to examine your confirmation bias, challenge yourself to see whether you are, Ray Gibson was saying, I know I've got bias and I know I confirm it, and as long as I let everyone know, then it's all understood. I'm not going to change my mind. We're just going to have to deal with it. And some people can get along like that. That's all right. But sometimes you get sort of, other people will place you in a box. You're a safe vote on this issue because you've already made up your mind, and no matter what the information says, you're not going to change. What maybe you need to change, or things are not going to change. And so it's that time again, time for Fox News at the top of the hour, and time for our stunningly gorgeous pom-pom girls and marching band and fireworks for our halftime show. And we'll be back with more Tall Tales in about 6 or so minutes, so do stay tuned.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Dorian's winds lashing the Florida coast. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. The storm's winds are battering the east coast of Florida, but it's the storm surge that poses the most danger.
And the surf is getting more violent. In the past, even in no-name storms, these areas, low-lying areas like this one along the boardwalk, have flooded out.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich in Daytona Beach. The core of the hurricane is some 130 miles northeast of Cape Canaveral, moving to the northwest at 7 miles an hour. That is slow, and it may reach South Carolina by Thursday, but like Florida, winds already being felt.
With gusty winds and heavy rain, Governor Henry McMaster says flooding could be a major problem.
Especially in Charleston, where the tide could rise to over 10 feet, 10.3 feet, it's estimated, which is about 5 feet higher than usual.
Hurricane evacuation routes were busy yesterday in the Carolinas as people seem to be taking the advice of authorities to get out before Dorian's arrival.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. After hammering the Bahamas for more than 2 days, at least 7 people are dead, and that number is expected to rise, and the depths of the devastation just now being comprehended. A Texas man who killed 7 in a mass shooting Saturday failed a background check.
It's now believed that the Odessa gunman got the AR-style weapon in a private sale. Not going through a licensed gun dealer allowed him to avoid federal background checks. An agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms said Monday that the shooter attempted to get a gun legally, but did not pass a background check. The gunman, after being fired from his job Saturday, drove into the Odessa area, randomly shooting people, killing 7 and wounding more than 20 others. He was later cornered outside a movie theater, shot, and killed by officers.
Fox's Gernal Scott, America's listening to Fox News.
Water. It covers nearly 3/4 of our Earth, from vast oceans to millions of rivers and streams. We're all concerned with protecting our world's water, but none is more important than the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve your water so that your family is using the best water in the world. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
The debate over how to stop gun violence rages on, with politicians blaming each other for inaction.
As pressure mounts on Congress to pass some form of gun control, Republican Senator Ted Cruz said it doesn't work. Look at Chicago. Disarming law-abiding citizens is not the answer. The tweet prompted a swift response from Chicago's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who fired back that, quote, 60% of illegal firearms recovered in Chicago come from outside Illinois, mostly from states dominated by coward Republicans like you, who refuse to enact common sense gun legislation. Keep our name out of your mouth.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. A bus carrying dozens of Chinese tourists crashes in New Zealand, killing at least 5 people.
This is an absolute tragedy on both plenty roads, even more so by the fact that we have Chinese nationals, visitors to our country who've been impacted in this way.
Police Inspector Brent Crowe says the bus crashed in poor weather. You could say this freshman at Yale University already has a degree from the School of Hard Knocks.
52-year-old former Navy SEAL James Hatch was accepted to the Ivy League school as an Eli Whitney Scholar. That's a program for non-traditional students who've had their educational careers interrupted. Hatch joined the military out of high school, spending almost 26 years in the Navy, fighting in Afghanistan and other hotspots. Hatch's military career ended when he was seriously wounded in 2009 during a mission to find Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, who had deserted his post. After 18 surgeries, Hatch suffered from PTSD, fell into drinking and drugs, and even attempted suicide. Hatch says he hopes his life experiences might be valuable to the Yale community. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And Pope Francis is on his way to Africa, departing Italy a short time ago for Mozambique. first stop of a 3-country week-long tour. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge-watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your NFL fix every Friday on Sports with Blake. Be a part of the action by going to yahoo.com's Fantasy Sports Pro Football Pick'em. Join League 3384 with the password Ray Gibson. Choose your team name and get your game on. Winners get a chance to win some awesome prizes that get you through the NFL season. The NFL Picks on the Ray Gibson Show is brought to you by Current Guam.
Mescla's featured special for September: shrimp hash crusted parrotfish, succulent parrotfish fillets crusted with a shrimp farce, twice cooked, served over basil lace sweet potato croquet and a crab and corn bisque sauce. Visit Mescla in Agotna and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Welcome back to Tall Tales. For the second hour of today's show, I'm Daryl Taggarty sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. He'll be back in, what did I say, 33 days? Let's get back up here. What is that? Scrolling online. Hey, here we go. Here we are. 33 days. Yes, he'll be back in 33 days. And that's what we're looking for here. We've got telephones. Our lines are open, 888-8255. What's on your mind? Have I not mentioned the topic that you really, really want to talk about? Let's see. I've got some things on Bill Watch. We're going to get to Bill Watch in a few minutes. But first, perhaps I should take a look at the part of the show that I've got listed as Excavating the Point. I don't need to read the whole article to you, but on page 1 of today's Guam Daily Post, the headline reads, Democrat Chair, no rush to judgment. And I'm okay with that. No need to be rushing to judgment. But what was the real point of the article? The real point of the article, not Scarlet Oak Restaurant and Bar or, going to the ethics orientation. You've heard my story about the ethics orientation. I went on one of those with Robert Underwood back when he was a newly elected freshman. So I know, I read this, very interesting. But this is the part that is the most important part of the whole article today and needs to be kept in mind as this whole thing unspools. And that is the third to the last paragraph in today's article. And it reads, single line, in the House of Representatives, the job of investigating ethics violations is placed on the House Ethics Committee. And those folks are serious because they're trying to hold President Trump to an ethical standard, And, they either don't want these sorts of things to rise up in their ranks, or if it has something to it, they want to stomp it out. Maybe not sweep it under the rug, because maybe it's something that the president's own staff will dig out and flag as being an example of Democrat congressional wrongdoing. We just entered that scrum. And so, it's not just as not so innocent as a story, just as a story. Regardless of what the facts are and how it all breaks out into, who's going to take umbrage over what. We also have, it's sort of interesting today, an opportunity for people here on Guam who want to do a little something else. If you can read well enough to read through federal guidelines and procedures and online applications, if you're good at that at all, then you may want to go on this training. And this is from PDN on page 10. The Guam Procurement Technical Assistance Center is offering free workshops to the public through September. Workshops run from 9 to 10 a.m. only, just 1 hour, at UOG at the Jesus and Eugenia Leon Guerrero Business and Public Administration Building. Margarita Perez and Jaime Tuquero IT&E Lecture Hall, Room 131. September 5th, that's tomorrow, at 9 a.m., FAR clauses explained. Confused by all the FAR clauses referenced in government solicitations, we will demystify these federal acquisition regulations. Join us as we explain many of the common FAR clauses found in federal solicitations. Now, why am I reading this? These are the kinds of training that Guam employers are saying Guam employees lack. And it's being provided. So anybody who wants to up their game, maybe you're working in an insurance company and you don't want to work in an insurance company for the rest of your life. Maybe you can read well enough to get a job with a construction company as a reader of federal regulations applicable to contracting and providing services to the federal government. September 12, Buy America Act. The Buy American Act can be frustrating for government contractors. We will discuss the Buy American Act and offer some guidance on how to stay in compliance. September 19th, Cybersecurity, Federal Contractor Responsibilities. Cybersecurity is a national security issue. We will discuss what federal contractors can do to make sure they are complying with DoD requirements with respect to keeping data protected. And on September 26th, subcontracting. Subcontracting is an important part of most government contracts. Subcontracting plans, limitations, and related FAR clauses. Again, those federal acquisition regulations will be discussed. And you can register for the workshops at guamptac.com, news and events, or email admin@guamptac.com. Walk-ins are welcome. That's the Guam Procurement Technical Assistance Center out at the University of Guam. Workshop 9 to 10 in the next month of Thursdays in September. Room 131 of the Business and Public Administration Building out at UOG. That and taking a look at the Guam Daily Post Help Wanted ads. Full-time and part-time game room attendants able to work any shift and on call. USDA Farm Service Agency is hiring a program technician responsible for admin tasks and field work. Yeah, USDA. 20 electricians needed with 2 years' experience. Laborers, operators, carpenters. Opening for responsible, reliable employment must have Guam Real ID. Preferred, Vertex Guam. Black construction needs a welder. They also need electrical and mechanical engineers and supervisors. And there's a company that's looking for a camp cook with 1 year experience for $11.20 an hour. These are all job openings here on Guam being advertised in the local paper or training opportunities. And so, you know, even there are jobs and there are training that is not fully taken advantage of by local folks. Need to point this out. And last but certainly not least, on Monday, PDN page 1 story was Land Trust Violations Widespread. You think? So Steve Limtiaco, every now and then, he pulls out of his pocket the results of some investigation he's made, and they printed on page 1 of the paper. It turns out to be solid investigative reporting. I think you ought to do it every day, but who am I? And he says Watson Farm, where he's got 12 out of 30 acres. He's farming 12 of 30 acres, and it's a rare example of a land trust agricultural lease being put to productive use. University uses part of Watson's farm to test different varieties of fruits, vegetables, and trees, and for research on harmful pests and plant diseases. And he is described as the best farmer on Guam because of his productivity, efficient farming practices under adverse conditions, and his work with the University of Guam to help other farmers on island, according to an extension associate with the University Cooperative Extension Program. But most land trust agricultural leaseholders do little to no farming on their agricultural properties, even though it is required by law and as a condition of their lease. Instead being used as a residential program by most leaseholders, many of whom have also ignored building codes. Most land trust properties don't have access to power, water, and sewer facilities, and the island's northern aquifer is threatened with contamination from land trust homes which lack proper sewage systems. This article could have been written 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But maybe it was. Steve just, took it out and updated it for this year. A multi-agency task force funded by the Land Trust and headed by the university in 2009 reviewed hundreds of Land Trust agricultural leases and visited dozens of Land Trust agricultural properties in an effort to identify the problems and come up with solutions to improve the agricultural program. There had been a lack of monitoring by the Land Trust to that point, and the task force visits were the first site inspections for most agricultural leaseholders. That's 10 years ago. Those who own land are lower priority for a residential lease, but there are no land ownership restrictions for land trust agricultural leases. Maybe I should go get myself. I know how to farm. Although the Land Trust is supposed to issue agricultural leases only to applicants it believes are capable of farming the property, about 74% of leaseholders, agricultural leaseholders, weren't meeting the minimum farming requirements. You can build a home on the land, but only if at least 2/3 of the property is actively being farmed, and only if the home complies with zoning and building laws. All of these provisions were being violated on land trust agricultural properties, according to the task force, which found, no septic systems, failure to meet the minimum production or tree planting requirement, violation of the intent of the program by unauthorized subleasing to non-Chamorros. There appeared to be land barons residing on land trust agricultural property. Noncompliance with agricultural labor laws, especially the hiring of foreign nationals, and unauthorized livestock operations. The problems identified were so widespread and, quote, beyond belief that needed to be addressed systematically. Otherwise, agricultural leaseholders would complain they are being discriminated against. And this is a task force from 10 years ago. He's reporting on this as 10 years ago. 10 years ago. The university trained half a dozen people under its agreement with the land trust, but the land trust, which was restructured under the Calvo administration, never hired them. The problems identified a decade ago have grown worse, said Bamba, whose job with the university requires him to visit farms island-wide to assist farmers. Just driving past, it's easy to identify land trust agricultural lots that have been abandoned or which are not being actively farmed by occupants. And then Picaferin says the challenges that were revealed in the UOG report are real and persist to today. At the time the report from UOG was completed, it would have been prudent to develop a multifaceted strategic plan with all stakeholders to address and resolve each of the problems identified. To my knowledge, that was not done. Well, if she's the chairwoman, and to her knowledge it wasn't done, and it would be prudent to develop a multifaceted strategic plan with all stakeholders to address and resolve each of the problems identified, then isn't she the one who's ultimately to blame for this not moving forward? I mean, she is the chair of the land trust. It has the board that she chairs. Who else is supposed to do it? Who else is supposed to make it happen? Would the real responsible official please stand up? And if there isn't one, then perhaps the real responsible official at the legislature should please stand up. Oh, maybe we shouldn't offend anybody. These people all vote. The land trust has never revoked an agricultural lease for noncompliance, Feheran said, but it has reduced the lot sizes of some violators who refused to comply. UOG Professor Bob Berger, who was part of the task force a decade ago, said 60 to 70% of land trust agricultural leaseholders never wanted a farm. They wanted a house, he said, and an agricultural lease was an easier path to getting a home than applying for a land trust residential lease. Now you've got people with 10 to 20 acre leases that aren't farming them, Berger said, and are instead building several homes on these properties for themselves and extended family. Properly managed, the land trust agricultural lots, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate, could boost the island's economy, Berger said. That's University of Guam Professor Bob Berger, Professor of Agricultural Economics. He said the land trust should set aside property where agricultural applicants can learn farming skills and then prove to the land trust they are able to farm before they are issued an agricultural lease. Actively farming even a small piece of land requires skill and investment in materials and hours of work each week. How do you give someone 15 acres that doesn't own a tractor and doesn't have a lot of money in the bank? He asked. The challenges are real and so much Oh, this is Pika Farron again, the chair. The challenges are real, and so much more work needs to be done. That's a direct quote. Quote, I truly believe that if all of us on Guam recognized the importance and value of the Chamorro Land Trust and helped us move it forward, the entire island will benefit. Oh, you know, she's such a sweetheart. She's so pretty. And she's, you know, she speaks so well. She knows exactly what the problem is. But she keeps waiting for someone else to do it. Why she's still chair, I don't know. Maybe with the new regime, it's because it's a female-led, you know, government. And you know, sometimes when I'm, you know, in an idle moment, I'm thinking about this. You know, what are we expecting, you know, of our government? Expectations versus performance by women politicians and candidates. What do we look for in a female candidate that distinguishes her from a male candidate? Actively marketed advantage? Is there some implicit value that we impart to them, saying she's got to be better than a man because the men have been so disappointing over the years? Are we imputing too much? How can we tell if we don't see real effort to do other than the same old, same old? Is the post-election politics of power in our government institutions, such as the legislature and the administration, tied to something other than the role and responsibility of the job? What motivates our elected officials to even bother serving the public once they're elected? Who do they serve if not us? Is it career tenure that is the strongest political calculus and thus motivation? Is there any difference between female incumbents from male incumbents? Are we, the voters, imputing qualities to female candidates that do not really exist, except in our own values, and that becomes their marketing edge? Does it limit our ability or willingness to observe and consider more deeply and reference different standards on which to base our choice? Or do we really understand women candidates? Of course, we know that people are going to simply vote by party, you know, or whether somebody is on the left or on the right, or she's black or she's white, higher or lower family reputation, position on single issues such as right to life or political status. Let's call these simple litmus test qualifications. You know, litmus test. Check little strip of paper and you dip it in the solution, and by its color will tell you whether it's more acid or more base. And, you know, I don't think they do that anymore, but still the concept survives. But all those people in the middle of the bell curve, the most people, make the ultimate decision on who is elected. Do female candidates have and use our biases that impute favorable qualities to them that they do not actually possess for their own advantage? The answer is in the results that we can see. Results where problems are addressed towards a solution instead of continuing to stir them for the publicity. It doesn't matter to me what Pika looks like. Pleasant to look at. But what she says and what she actually does are what are important to me. Same with senators down at the current legislature. So there's 10 women. What are they saying and what are they doing? Is there any difference? And our governor. What is she saying and what is she doing? And is there any difference from previous governors who happened to be men? So maybe we're just getting the same wool pulled over our eyes. The women they just learned the game, and we're being gamed. If we don't see any difference, if they're not actually using their position as elected officials to make changes, if it looks like just the same old, same old. Well, here we go again. It's 5:30, and I've got to take a seventh inning stretch, and you can too. Right now, Real Joe, take it away.
This is Ronnie. Ronnie is about to break his piggy bank.
Come on, piggy bank.
Ronnie wants to upgrade his smartphone.
And this piggy's gonna help me.
If Ronnie had signed up for GTA's handset payment option, he could have selected a new smartphone with an affordable monthly plan.
I could have what?
Exactly. Sign up for HBO at GTA and don't break the bank.
I'm sorry, piggy bank.
Terms and conditions apply. GTA, we start with you.
I have frequently mentioned the value and importance of finding qualified mentors to help advance your career. I believe in it. What we have not discussed is how this relationship benefits the mentor. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about the upside of mentoring.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that bat smack and knock it out of the park. I was listening for it when we were watching and hoping with our hands clasped to the deliberations on the 2020 budget. Gee, glad I had some lotion. Otherwise, my hands would have been worn out and bleeding by now. I found GuamTraining.com website. I'm going to find this confirmation bias article. There was something we heard during an earlier break. Tagline, one of our advertisers here is GRMC. Where patients are partners. And from one of those, a person who's not been a patient, but has been patient, as taking a loved one through that system. I'm happy with the whole experience. But I was just thinking that the slogan, a parallel slogan for GMH would be GMH, where taxpayers are responsible. And so sometimes it's run as if it was GPA, another autonomous agency that legislature can't touch because it's under the governor according to the Organic Act. Governor is responsible for health care. Governor is responsible for making sure that dengue fever and leptospirosis don't get loose in this community. And so she can call out, she can call out the National Guard if she wants to meet every plane from Marshall Islands, Yap, Palau, Philippines, to make sure that everyone that's coming in is examined at least, basically examined, and that we get local contact information so in case they have any symptoms that pop up over 2 or 3 days, that we know where they are. and where they might be presenting themselves to get health care. You know, that's how much power she has. But we, the taxpayers, are responsible, and voters are responsible for putting the governor in a position to oversee GMH. And the legislature has a committee chair that is empowered to look into how well the governor is implementing health care policy on Guam. It's not out of our hands. It's in the hands of people who represent us and hold the positions of responsibility and power to address the problems. And so you can't wash your hands of it. The people who show up for work every day in the government of Guam are there working because our representatives that we elect think that they're important enough to put in there and show up every day and pay. How well is this all working out? If we've got enough to complain about every day, something new every day, and the same old doesn't go away after 10 years of studying, we really need to have political leaders who are going to finally solve problems and not simply find a way to turn these problems into political advantage. Voting blocs who will be just so happy, so grateful if you would just not look at us. Just leave us here. We'll be fine. We'll vote for you if you just leave us alone for another 5 years. And that's how we're kind of getting along here. Agencies, as long as you just don't look at us too closely and expect us to do any more work. You know, we're all arthritic and we're trying to get to retirement. Don't ask us to do more. We don't know how to do any more. We just have to do what we're already paid to do from like 10 years ago, because that's all the training we had and that's all anybody's asked us to do. But no, they don't even bother giving us pencil budget anymore. Don't blame us. IAD. So what's going on these days? Let's see. On Facebook, Ken Leon Guerrero says, I think that both the administration and the 35th legislature have proven beyond all shadow of a doubt that women can screw up just as badly as men can. Well, unless you're like rainbow-colored, you know, unless you are a rainbow-colored unicorn, you know, to have proper relations here, it takes both. And it looks like women can learn these skills as well as men, these political skills. GMH, where taxpayers are taken to the cleaners. Well, you know, somebody's got to clean you up, you know, when you come in, all busted up. Brandon Glazer says, sounds good. Thank you, Brandon, for letting me know. I'm, you know, I'm almost running out of coffee here, but, you know, not that I'm really looking forward to the end of today's show because it's pretty nice, wide-ranging, but I was kind of wondering if the phones work. 888-8255, you want to get in, comment of your own, and stop hearing my comments. But you know what's going on this week? Adelup is reviewing the budget bill. The governor was optimistic about Bill 18635, though a senator said more could have been done to reduce government costs. Oh, wow. What a truism. But that bill's already been passed and sent to the governor for approval, so job done. The job is done unless the governor vetoes a bill that she was asking for. She basically asked for it, and unless there's something really, really, you know, that she can't live with for another year, she can't live without, she's got, what, 15% transfer authority, and she's got funding for all sorts of positions that are vacant and we can easily get along without. It's not like we've got extra funding for revenue tax positions or, but we sure do have, and we don't really have a real handle on how much GMH really needs, because they keep talking about problems, but they also keep hiring. So they keep hiring. That means that they have money that they're not spending on the problems, except the problem of not having enough people to work with and for them in admin. And it's apparently a higher priority at GMH than actual delivery of services. It's more important to plan and assess and oversee and to actually clean something up or patch something. And the governor said, "I am really glad the budget is passed. I'm very thankful for all the senators who worked hard to make that happen. The senators worked hard to make sure the agencies they oversee are getting the resources they need, and I think for the most part that's been accomplished. So it's a good budget to start off and work with. The flexibility that I have will assure the people of Guam that I will use my authority to protect and make sure the monies that we do get is being used for the government and for the people of Guam. Government first, and then the people of Guam." And that's a direct quote from Governor Leon Guerrero, the female Governor Leon Guerrero. And then going through here, Senator James Moylan said discussing a $1 billion budget, quote, "should never be addressed in just 6 working days. Quote, "This is a tedious process that should take at least 30 days to work through. And considering that this is one of the key responsibilities of the Guam legislature, it is unfair to island residents that the effort was rushed." Well, I'd say probably should have gotten on your horse and started reading that document, or going to some of the meetings, or sitting camping out with the chairman of the committee before 30 days ago. I mean, you really can help. He's not even a chair of any committee with oversight responsibility. So he can deep dive into any agency's budget. He can call for the background documents from Office of Finance and Budget under the committee that has the budget committee. And then let's see, who else was saying? Oh, it's Senator Therese Talai says the budget includes, quote, "some good things," but admits that it is, quote, "not perfect." Well, you know, a budget can be perfect. All you have to do is authorize the governor to spend a blanket amount of money and generally allow money to be moved from one place to another. And just let us know when you do that. No permission needed, just notify us. That's a perfect budget. The measure also includes a government-wide hiring freeze for non-critical positions in an effort to reduce government cost. That's interesting. Non-critical hiring freeze for non-critical positions. But does that mean that the money was taken out of the budget? That the money that's allocated for those positions and their overhead is removed from the budget? It could have been reduced, so we already know what vacancies are coming up. How many vacancies are created each year by attrition, by retirements? And that is known. I mean, this is pretty much a constant. You know how many people are coming up for retirement and how many are going to exercise that option. And then you know that these are highly paid employees because they've been there 30 years. And you know how much you're not going to have to put out. If they plan to leave on, let's say, October 30, so 1 month into the fiscal year, you got 11 months of that budget. That becomes available for reappropriation. Or you don't even have to bother. Governor can just transfer it. So that's what's going on this week in our bill watch. Also, recycling fund proposal awaits senators' action. And this is in PDN today. Because the Guam EPA doesn't have regulations on how to spend the money. It's put into a fund. They're authorized to spend the money, but they haven't come up with regulations. But what action do the senators need to make? All they have to do is look it over and see. If it's done, it just goes into effect. If the legislature does nothing, it doesn't require senators' action. Unless they say, no, these stink, we're not going to live with this, and they can decide that and throw it back to Guam EPA. The proposed rules seek to establish uniform standards in spending monies in the 16-year-old recycling revolving fund, which comes mainly from fees paid by residents every time they register their motor vehicle. It is meant to support the collection and solid waste removal out of Guam. So not going to the landfill, but taking it completely off island. And a 2015 audit on the revolving recycling fund said, as such, there are no recycling rules and regulations in place, according to the Office of Public Accountability. And so there's a public hearing at 10:30 on Friday morning on Bill 198. I suppose Bill 198 is going to adopt the regulations by law. So then, I guess they just don't learn. So are the regulations appended to law, which means they're not regulations? They're not codified law because they're passed by a law, adopted by law, instead of adopted by the regulation process. They're not supposed to do that, folks. They're not supposed to do that because it confuses everybody. But it sure does look like you're doing something if you put in a bill and you have a hearing on the bill and you get the bill passed. I got those regulations passed. It'll take a couple years to figure out whether you can treat them as regulations or you're required to do it by law and you still need regulations. Minimum wage bill is ready for session. Guam Daily Post says, Senator Regine Bisco-Lee says the increase of minimum wage over the next 2 years, quote, can be considered at the next available legislative session. And like Ray was talking about this morning, there's no reason to have to think about this too much. Everyone knows how you feel about it. Either you're in support of it or you're not. And either the senators are in support of it or they're not. They're going to get up and vote. They're probably going to jaw about it for a while and try to justify to their business donors, to their campaigns, why they got to vote for it. Or the ones who are going to vote no are going to get up and wax poetic about, apologizing to the people of Guam about why it's such a bad idea. But my heart bleeds for you. Like every time, I have to think about this vote because I know you deserve the money, but I don't want to torpedo my business friends and what the hard work they're doing. And there's already been testimony on this bill. And so, yeah, time to take a break. Take a short break, and we'll come right back with more Tall Tales and the last 10 minutes after this.
Live the balanced lifestyle. Take Care Insurance offers proven wellness and fitness programs to encourage individuals and families to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle through preventative care, being active, eating right, relaxing and unwinding, and being socially connected. They have the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs for all ages. Join the movement. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram or visit takecareasia.com to learn more.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
And what happened to our horn there? I was listening for that.
I think the
trumpet.
guy ran out of breath.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it. You know, there got a few minutes here. I see that the military is addressing a missing letter on the danger zone out at Finnegadson, the proposed Finnegadson shooting range that they want to build. And you know, this is really the key to in this story is really the key if you want to do something effective to keep something from being built. Make sure that you understand the applicable laws and regulations and procedures that the applicant needs to follow. Because if you look closely enough, you'll find where they made shortcuts. They took shortcuts. They downplayed the importance of some aspect that should have been highlighted, or they glossed over, or they excused something summarily, and then buried it into, in the 1,500 pages of documents and application process. It's so hard. But if you flip through all the boilerplate and you get to the statement of intent and the justifications, you'll find where somebody got lazy at 10 o'clock at night or 4 in the afternoon and just glossed over it without meeting the requirements of law or regulation or an established process. Forgot to put a footnote saying this was the study we did that supports this conclusion. Or we sent letters out to all persons who expressed an interest in this. When you do that, you use the competence or lack thereof of the applicant's team as a tool to undermine them. But you got to be good at it. And so this is what happened. Army Corps of Engineers Honolulu District stated last week letters were sent to those who submitted public comment on the proposal and requested a public hearing, informing them of the military's decision. After deciding that no public hearing is necessary for a Navy surface danger zone, which will impact public access to the waters and beaches in the Finnegadson area. You know, if you've seen, I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, where the Ritidian Fish and Wildlife Reservation that's been open to the public is now going to be closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. And, if you go back some years, they said, yeah, we're going to keep it open except when the turtles are laying their eggs and, reasons like that. Now it's like, we don't have to say why we're going to close. We're just going to close it. And yes, they can build a firing range that extends out, safety zone extends out over the water. They can do that. But they can just as easily say, we are going to be using the area between Marine Drive and Route 15, and between Jigo and Dedido, as a military training area, and so be expecting lots of really loud explosions and the rerouting of aircraft, and maybe we'll have to close Route 15, and maybe our exercises will go all the way down into, adjacent lands. Maybe there'll be uniformed, war fighters, making your dogs bark as they come hopping fences. Because we live adjacent to these military activities that are deadly serious. And either we are going to be competent in addressing our concerns with that or not. Senator Kelly Marsh wrote a column that was in the PDN. Let's see, when was it? Tuesday, September 3rd. Gosh, that was just yesterday. And she says, Northwest Field, worst option for firing range. And I'm not going to read this, but it says, from the very beginning, placing a range at Tailalo did not make sense. And she goes through and she finds where the military even said it didn't make sense because it conflicts with the use of Northwest Field for training using aircraft. And yes, that's right. It's an incompatible use. That's why the firing ranges are not down by Taragi Beach, because they'll interfere with the use of Anderson Air Force Base and the flight line and all that good stuff. You need more separation. That's why it says Northwest Field, the worst option for firing range. But you know where the first range was supposed to be that would not have presented any of these problems for flight operations at any of the fields? And that was Paget. And I'm not suggesting that we go back to Paget. But Paget was recommended as the best because of its location. And they didn't say, okay, instead of Paget, we'll go down to Seti Bay or Sela Bay, right? Didn't do that. We won't take any more land and, down in south or something like that. No, they didn't do that. Now it's up in Finnegadson. The island isn't that big. But I tell you, once these activities are justified, then it's the new normal. And I'm okay with however this all works out. But maybe future generations won't be. It's a good thing that some folks are doing their homework. But I just, as I was reading through this opinion by the Assistant Majority Leader of the 35th Guam Legislature, I just thought it was real good in parts and really over the top in parts. Speaking of over the top, I think we just crossed a threshold here. I think we're over the top here with our show for the day. So let me go ahead and wish you a pleasant evening. It's 5:59. Time to make room. I'll be back again tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, I won't be. Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, Ray Gibson will be in this chair. Tune in, listen to what he has to say, and call him up and tell him what you think. From 6 until 10 tomorrow. I'll be back at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon with more Tall Tales. Have a good evening, everyone.